2 months had passed since the battle that changed everything. Kepler 442b was no longer a quiet mining colony on the edge of known space. It had become New Haven Station, a symbol of hope for millions of beings across the galaxy. Park Tae-ho wore the uniform of a deep frontier diplomatic liaison as he walked through the expanded colony. The population had grown to over 5,000, with humans, Veltari, and dozens of other species living and working together. Construction continued day and night, turning the small settlement into a proper city. In the medical center, men worked alongside Veltari healers to treat refugees arriving daily from former Keth territories. The combination of human medical technology and Veltari biological gifts had created treatments that seemed miraculous to many species. The Neural Interface Project is exceeding all expectations, she reported to Tae-ho during their morning briefing. We've helped beings from 17 different species recover from injuries that would have been permanent just months ago. And the research applications? Even more promising. The Veltari ability to communicate with living tissue, combined with human chaos processing, is leading to breakthroughs we never imagined. We're literally inventing new forms of medicine. Through the medical center windows, they could see the new spaceport where ships arrived constantly. Most carried refugees, but some brought diplomatic delegations, trade representatives, and scientists eager to study the human-Veltari partnership. Admiral Han found them there, looking more relaxed than he had in months. The crisis atmosphere of the first weeks had given way to organized expansion and careful planning. The situation reports from across the galaxy are encouraging, he announced. The Keth Empire is officially dissolved as of yesterday. The last holdout worlds declared independence and joined the new Federation of Free Worlds. What about the refugee crisis? Tae-ho asked, stabilizing. We've established processing centers in 12 systems, with more being built. Most refugees are choosing to settle in human-protected space rather than returning to their devastated homeworlds. Commander Lim Hanul approached with her daily security briefing. Sir, we've had contact from the Rigelian Trade Consortium. They're requesting permission to establish a permanent commercial office here. Approved, Han replied immediately. The more legitimate commerce we can attract, the faster this place becomes self-sustaining. There's more. The Centauran Science Academy wants to build a research station in this system. They're particularly interested in studying human-alien cooperation models. Also approved. What else? The Zephyrian Military Council is requesting a formal defense treaty. They're offering to share their shield technology in exchange for human tactical training. Han paused at this. That's the 15th such request this month. Dr. O, what's your assessment of the broader situation? Dr. O looked up from her data tablets where she had been analyzing communication intercepts from across the galaxy. The pattern is clear, Admiral. Fear of human military capabilities is driving initial contact, but genuine interest in human partnership models is sustaining those relationships. Meaning, species approach us because they're afraid of our weapons. They stay because they're impressed by our civilization. Elder Cathera joined the conversation, moving with the slow grace that had become familiar to everyone in the colony. At over 800 years old, she had become an unofficial advisor on interspecies relations. The young species are learning what we Veltari discovered long ago, she said in her musical voice. Humans possess something unique in the galaxy. You create stability through controlled chaos, peace through demonstrated strength. Is that sustainable long-term? Soman asked. Can we keep the galaxy peaceful just by being too dangerous to fight? Not by being dangerous, Dr. O corrected. By being unpredictable. Most species can calculate the cost of war and decide if it's worthwhile. With humans, that calculation is impossible because we don't fight the way others expect. Lieutenant Bay approached with the latest intelligence summary. Admiral, we're receiving confirmation of something we've suspected for weeks. Several aggressive species that were planning expansion campaigns have canceled their military operations. Which species? The Vorthan Imperium called off their invasion of the Kepler sector. The Thrakari horde has withdrawn from 3 contested systems. Even the hegemony of suns is negotiating with their neighbors instead of conquering them. All because they're afraid we might intervene? More than that. They're afraid they don't understand our capabilities well enough to risk conflict. The unknown is more terrifying than any known weapon. Tae-ho looked around the bustling command center, processing the magnitude of what they had achieved. So we've created galactic peace by accident? Not by accident, Admiral Han replied. By demonstration? We showed the galaxy that aggression has consequences, even when the aggressor seems overwhelmingly powerful. And now everyone wants to be our friend instead of our enemy, Lim added. Most everyone, Dr. O cautioned. There are still species that view human expansion as a threat to be eliminated, but they're being very careful about how they oppose us. The conversation was interrupted by Dongwu's voice over the communication system. All senior staff to the main observation deck. We have visitors arriving. They took the elevator to the top of the new administration tower, where floor-to-ceiling windows provided a spectacular view of space. A convoy of ships was approaching the station, but these weren't the usual refugee transports or merchant vessels. Those are warships, Jiho observed, studying the formation through binoculars, but not human designs. Altarian, Admiral Han identified, the Council of Worlds' official diplomatic fleet. As they watched, the alien vessels arranged themselves in a formal pattern around New Haven Station. Each ship was elegant and sleek, designed for speed and diplomacy rather than combat. But their presence was still imposing. A communication request came through the main system. The face that appeared on the screens was distinctly non-human, with metallic skin and eyes that glowed with inner light. Despite the alien features, the expression was unmistakably respectful. Admiral Han, this is Coordinator Thanevex of the Altarian Council. We request permission to dock and present formal credentials to the human government. Granted, Coordinator. Welcome to New Haven Station. What kind of credentials? Taeho asked quietly. The kind that officially recognize humanity as a major galactic power, Han replied. We're about to receive formal diplomatic status with the largest alliance in known space. Over the next hour, they watched as Altarian diplomats, scientists, and cultural attachés disembarked from their ships. The group was led by Coordinator Thanevex, whose metallic features were complemented by robes that seemed to shift color in the light. The formal ceremony took place in the new council chamber, with representatives from dozens of species in attendance, human colonists, Veltari refugees, and alien diplomats all gathered to witness a moment that would reshape galactic politics. The Council of Worlds hereby extends full recognition to humanity as a sovereign interstellar civilization, Thanevex announced. We offer formal alliance, mutual defense agreements, and unlimited access to the galactic trade networks. The Council also wishes to establish a permanent embassy at New Haven Station, the coordinator continued. This facility has become a symbol of interspecies cooperation and peaceful coexistence. Admiral Han stepped forward to accept the formal documents. Humanity accepts this recognition and looks forward to peaceful relations with all Council member species. As the ceremony concluded, Taeho found himself standing next to Kethara on the observation deck. The Veltari elder gazed out at the stars with her ancient eyes. In all my centuries, I never imagined seeing such a day, she said softly. A species using military strength to create lasting peace rather than temporary dominance. Do you think it will last? Taeho asked. Nothing lasts forever, Kethara replied. But you have created something unprecedented. A balance of power based not on fear alone, but on the promise of mutual benefit. And if someone decides to challenge that balance, then they will learn what the Keth learned. That humanity does not fight wars the way others expect, and victory is not always achieved through superior numbers or weapons. Through the windows, they could see ships from dozens of different worlds docked at the station. Human and alien crews worked together, loading supplies, sharing information, building something that had never existed before in galactic history. The refugee children are starting school next week, Soman announced, joining them at the window. Human and alien children learning together. We're literally raising the next generation of galactic citizens. They'll grow up thinking this is normal, Heejin added. Multiple species cooperating instead of competing. It might change everything. Admiral Han approached with a satisfied expression. The Council has offered to fund expansion of New Haven Station into a proper interstellar city. Population could reach 50,000 within 5 years. And everyone's welcome? Taeho asked. Human and alien alike? Everyone who comes in peace, Han confirmed. Though we'll maintain the military base to ensure that peace is respected. 3 days had passed since the battle, and Kepler 442b was transforming before their eyes. Massive human engineering ships worked around the clock, building a defense station that would protect not just the colony but the entire system. The quiet mining world was becoming a fortress. Tejo stood in the new command center that Deep Frontier engineers had constructed in record time. The facility was twice the size of their old building, and filled with technology that seemed decades ahead of anything Earth had publicly developed. Admiral Han Sung-woo arrived on the morning shuttle, accompanied by several officers and scientists. The man who had destroyed an entire Keth fleet looked tired, as if the weight of command was heavier than any physical burden. "Commander Park," the admiral greeted him formally. "I apologize for not speaking with you sooner. There were urgent matters requiring my attention across the sector." "The Keth Empire?" Tejo asked. "What's left of it?" 7 more species declared independence yesterday. The Keth are fighting civil wars on 12 different worlds. Their military is collapsing faster than our intelligence analysts can track. So-min joined them, carrying a medical report that had kept her awake for 2 nights. "Admiral, I need to show you something about the Veltari. Something that explains why the Keth wanted them so badly." They gathered around a large display screen where So-min called up her research data. Brain scans, genetic analyses, and biological models filled the monitor with complex information. "The Veltari aren't just naturally gifted at biotechnology," she explained. "Their neural structure allows them to process biological information in ways that should be impossible. Watch this." She showed a recording of a Veltari healer working on a human patient with a severe injury. The alien's hands glowed with a soft light as broken bones knitted together and damaged tissue regenerated in minutes. "They're not using technology," So-min continued. "They're directly interfacing with biological systems at a cellular level. It's like their brains can communicate with living tissue." Admiral Han studied the data with growing interest. "And the Keth knew about this ability?" "More than that. We intercepted transmissions from their fleet before you destroyed it. The Keth weren't planning to use the Veltari as simple slaves. They wanted to extract their brains and incorporate them into biological weapons." Dr. O stepped forward, her expression grim. "We've seen evidence of this technology in captured Keth facilities. Living creatures modified into weapons platforms. Diseases engineered to target specific species. With Veltari neural tissue, they could have created biological weapons that adapt and evolve on their own." Elder Cathara, who had been listening quietly, spoke in her musical voice. "We have long known that our gift made us valuable to those who would do evil. It is why we fled when the Keth first approached our world with offers of alliance. You've been studying us too, haven't you?" Tejo asked the Veltari elder, "learning about human biology." "For 2 years we have observed your people with great interest," Cathara admitted. "We needed to understand if humans would eventually see us as resources to be exploited, as so many others have." "And what did you discover?" "Something unprecedented in our long history. Human neural patterns contain a quality we have never observed in any other species. You process chaos and uncertainty in ways that other minds cannot comprehend." Admiral Han leaned forward. "Explain." "Most intelligent species, including our own, seek order and predictability. Your minds actively embrace disorder and use it as a tool. This is why you can develop impossible technologies and fight battles that should not be winnable." Dr. O nodded enthusiastically. "That matches our psychological profiles. Humans don't just adapt to unexpected situations. We create unexpected situations as a strategic advantage." "The Keth knew about human chaos processing?" So-min asked. "They suspected," Cathara replied. "It is why they feared your species despite your apparent weakness. They hoped that combining human neural patterns with Veltari biological interface abilities would create the perfect weapon. A biological system that could adapt to any defense and overcome any obstacle." Admiral Han concluded grimly. "Thank whatever powers exist that we stopped them first." Lieutenant Bay approached with the latest intelligence reports. "Admiral, we're receiving communications from across the galaxy. The news of our victory is spreading to species we've never had contact with before." "What kind of communications?" "Requests for protection, mostly. 17 different species have asked for human military assistance against Keth remnants or other aggressive neighbors. 6 more want to establish formal diplomatic relations." Commander Lim Ha-Newell, who had been overseeing the defense station construction, joined the conversation. "There's something else, sir. Our deep space monitoring stations are detecting unusual activity in several sectors. Ship movements, fleet reorganizations, emergency military councils." "The galaxy is choosing sides," Admiral Han observed. "Species that were neutral are deciding whether to approach us as friends or prepare to face us as enemies. And which choice are most of them making?" Tejo asked. Friendship, Bay replied. Aggressively friendly. 3 major trade federations have offered us exclusive commercial agreements. The Altarian Council wants to hire human military advisors. Even some former Keth allies are trying to negotiate peace treaties. Dr. O looked up from her data tablets. Fear is a powerful motivator. We've demonstrated that human military power is beyond current galactic understanding. Most species would rather be our allies than risk becoming our enemies. Is that what we wanted? Somin asked. To rule through fear like the Keth did? No, Admiral Han said firmly. Fear is just the first step. Once we've established that attacking human interests has consequences, we can begin building genuine relationships based on mutual respect. Cathara observed the humans with her large, thoughtful eyes. Your species continues to surprise us. You have used overwhelming force to create the possibility of lasting peace. It's a dangerous gamble, Tejo admitted. If other species decide we're too dangerous to exist, they might unite against us. They might try, Commander Lim agreed. But they would face the same problem the Keth encountered. How do you fight an enemy that doesn't follow your rules? Speaking of rules, Admiral Han said, we need to discuss the future of this colony. Deep Frontier Command wants to establish a permanent base here, but that means significant changes to your way of life. What kind of changes? Hyjin asked. More people, for one thing. Military personnel, support staff, their families. We're talking about growing from 300 residents to several thousand within a year. And the other changes? Security protocols, communications monitoring, restricted zones around sensitive facilities. You'll still be a civilian colony, but one that exists alongside a major military installation. Dongwu looked concerned. Will we still have autonomy? The right to make our own decisions about colony matters? Within reason, Han replied. Anything that affects security or operational capability will need military approval. But day-to-day colony administration remains under civilian control. What about our Veltari friends? Tejo asked. Are they free to stay or leave as they choose? Completely free, Han assured him. In fact, we're hoping many will choose to stay. Their biological expertise combined with human technology could lead to medical breakthroughs that benefit the entire galaxy. And their safety? This system now has better defenses than Earth itself. Anyone who wants to harm the Veltari would have to go through the Deep Frontier Fleet first. Elder Cathara spoke to her people in their musical language, then addressed the humans. We have decided to remain. Not all of us, but many. We wish to see what wonders might emerge from the partnership between our species. There is one more thing, Dr. O said quietly. Something we discovered in the captured Keth communications that everyone should know. She activated a holographic display showing a map of local space. Red markers indicated Keth territories, but many were flickering or fading. The Keth Empire is collapsing, but that's creating new problems. Freed slave populations are fleeing in all directions. Criminal organizations are moving into abandoned territories. Several species are trying to claim former Keth worlds for themselves. War? Jiho asked. Multiple wars, Dr. O confirmed. And many of the displaced populations are heading toward human space looking for protection. Admiral Han studied the display with a strategist's eye. How many refugees are we talking about? Conservative estimates suggest several million beings from dozens of different species. They see humanity as the power that freed them from Keth oppression. And they're all coming here into other human colonies. We've accidentally triggered the largest refugee crisis in galactic history. The room fell silent as everyone absorbed this information. Their quiet mining colony had become the center of events that would reshape the entire galaxy. So what do we do? Tejo asked finally. Admiral Han looked around the room at the mix of human colonists, military officers, and Veltari refugees who had started it all. We do what humans do best, he said with a slight smile. We figure it out as we go and somehow make it work. Commander Shin Ji-woo studied the faces around him before continuing his explanation. The colonists waited in tense silence, still trying to process what they had witnessed. 15 years ago, humanity made first contact with alien civilizations, Shin began. What the public was told was that we met peaceful traders and explorers. What actually happened was that we encountered 3 different species that immediately tried to conquer or enslave us. Tejo felt a chill run down his spine. That's not what the history books say. The history books were edited for public morale, Shin replied. The truth was that humanity was seen as weak prey by most of the galaxy. Our peaceful nature was interpreted as cowardice. Our willingness to negotiate was seen as submission, so Min stepped forward. But we did make peaceful contact with many species. The trade agreements, the cultural exchanges, all real, Shin confirmed. But they only happened after we demonstrated that attacking humanity was a very bad idea. The peaceful aliens were quite happy to deal with us once the violent ones stopped trying to conquer us. He gestured toward the window where human warships could be seen in orbit. Deep Frontier Command was created in secret to prepare for the inevitable war. We've been operating in the Outer Rim for over a decade, studying alien technology and developing weapons to counter every threat we encountered. What kind of weapons were those? Hijin asked. I've never seen anything destroy ships that completely. Probability weapons, Shin explained. Instead of just blowing things up, they convince reality that the target never existed in the first place. It takes enormous amounts of energy, but the results are thorough. Elder Cathara spoke up, her voice filled with scientific curiosity. Such weapons should be impossible. The physics required would be beyond any known species. You're right, Shin agreed. They should be impossible. But humans have a talent for making impossible things work anyway. We don't follow the same rules as everyone else. Jiho looked confused. What do you mean? Most species develop technology in predictable patterns. They build on existing knowledge, following established scientific principles. Humans do that too. But we also make random leaps that nobody expects. We combine ideas that shouldn't work together and somehow make them function. Dr. Oh Yunsu, a woman in a scientist's uniform, entered the command center. She carried data tablets and had the intense look of someone who studied alien psychology for a living. Commander, I've finished the preliminary scans of the Keth ships, she reported. Their technology follows standard galactic patterns. Powerful but entirely predictable, they never imagined facing weapons that operate outside normal physics. Dr. O is our xenopsychologist, Shin explained to the colonists. She studies how different species think and fight. What we've discovered, Dr. O continued, is that most alien civilizations follow rigid patterns of behavior. The Keth always use the same battle formations, the same strategies, the same threats. They expect their enemies to do the same. But humans don't follow patterns, so Min guessed. Exactly. Humans embrace what we call chaos doctrine. You make up new strategies in the middle of battle. You use weapons in ways they weren't designed for. You turn weaknesses into strengths and make your unpredictability into a weapon itself. Teho was starting to understand. That's why the Keth were so easily defeated. They couldn't adapt to our tactics. They couldn't even comprehend our tactics, Shin corrected. To them, what we did looked like magic. Ships that exist in multiple locations at once. Weapons that erase targets from history. Battle plans that change every second. It was completely outside their understanding of warfare. Lieutenant Bei Yu Jin, a young intelligence officer, approached with a data pad. Commander, we're intercepting communications across the sector. News of the Keth defeat is spreading fast. What's the reaction? Shin asked, panic mostly. Several species that were allied with the Keth are desperately trying to contact human diplomatic missions. They're offering trade deals, peace treaties, anything to avoid being seen as enemies. And the Keth Empire itself? Collapsing. 3 member species have already declared independence. Others are in open rebellion. The fleet we destroyed here was one of their most powerful battle groups. Without it, they can't maintain control of their territory. Kithara listened to this exchange with growing amazement. You defeated the Keth Empire in a single battle? We demonstrated that they could be defeated, Dr. O explained. The Keth maintained power through fear. Their subject species obeyed because they believed the Keth were invincible. Once we proved they weren't, the Empire started falling apart on its own. But how did you get here so fast? Dongwu asked. Even with advanced ships, you couldn't have traveled from Earth in time to save us. Shin smiled for the first time since arriving. That's because we didn't come from Earth. Deep Frontier Command has bases throughout this sector. We've been watching this system for months. Watching us? Teho felt a mix of gratitude and suspicion. Protecting you, Shin corrected. We knew the Keth would eventually find the Veltari refugees. This colony was bait in a larger trap. The room erupted in angry voices. Colonists shouted questions and accusations. The Veltari looked shocked and hurt. Teho raised his hand for silence. You used us, he said quietly. You let us think we were abandoned while you waited for the Keth to attack. We let you live normal lives while we prepared to defend you, Shin replied. If you had known about Deep Frontier Command, you might have acted differently. The Keth might have suspected a trap. So we were expendable? You were never expendable. But you were necessary. Shin's expression grew serious. This war was inevitable, Teho. The Keth and others like them see humanity as a threat that must be eliminated. We could either fight on their terms or create our own battlefield. And what happens now? Somin asked. Commander Lim Hanul, another officer who had been quiet until now, stepped forward. Now the galaxy learns that humanity is not as peaceful as we appear. Species that were planning to attack human colonies are reconsidering their plans. Empires that thought Earth was defenseless are reassessing their intelligence. We've changed the balance of power without firing a shot beyond this system, Dr. O added. Sometimes the best way to prevent a war is to win it before it starts. Kethera approached Taiho, her large eyes filled with understanding. Your people planned this for years. You knew we would be hunted, knew the Keth would come, and used that knowledge to protect not just us, but all the peaceful species in the galaxy. We protected our friends, Teho said simply, by making yourselves appear weak when you were actually strong, the Veltari elder observed. It is a strategy our people never considered. We always believed that showing strength was the only way to deter enemies. Sometimes it is, Shin agreed. But sometimes letting enemies think they're stronger makes them careless. The Keth came here expecting an easy victory over helpless humans. Instead, they found a prepared battlefield and weapons they couldn't counter. Outside, more human ships were arriving. These were different from the warships. Larger, more utilitarian vessels designed for construction and support. What are those? Haijin asked. Engineering ships, Shin explained. We're going to build a proper defense station here. This system is now a forward base for deep frontier operations. Does that mean we have to leave? Teho asked. Only if you want to. The colony can stay and grow. In fact, we'd prefer it. Human civilians living normal lives make the best cover for our operations. Sang Ho, who had been quiet since the battle ended, finally spoke up. I owe everyone an apology. I was ready to hand over our friends to save ourselves. I didn't understand what we were really fighting for. You understood survival, Shin replied. That's not wrong. But sometimes survival requires taking risks that seem impossible. Like facing a fleet of warships with mining equipment. Like trusting that your friends won't abandon you, even when the situation looks hopeless. Kethara spoke to the assembled humans, her musical voice carrying across the room. We came here as refugees, grateful for shelter and safety. Now we understand that you have given us something far more precious. You have given us hope that the galaxy can be better than it was. Through the windows, the colonists could see human engineers working alongside alien specialists, beginning construction of something that would change their quiet world forever. But for the first time in days, the future looked bright instead of terrifying. The storm had passed, and in its wake, everything was different. The countdown timer showed 15 minutes until the Keth deadline when the impossible happened. Space exploded. Where empty darkness had been moments before, reality tore open like fabric ripping apart. Through the tears came ships unlike anything the colonists had ever seen. They were angular and predatory, painted in dark colors that seemed to absorb light. Weapons bristled from every surface, and their hulls flickered with energy fields that made them hard to look at directly. What are those? Hyojin whispered, staring at the sensor displays in shock. Dongwu's fingers flew over his controls, trying to identify the new arrivals. I'm reading 37 ships. No, 42. They keep appearing. He looked up with wide eyes. These aren't like any human ships in the databases. The newcomers arranged themselves in a formation that defied military logic. Instead of neat lines or defensive positions, they scattered across space in patterns that seemed random, but felt purposeful. At their center was a massive ship that dwarfed even the largest Keth vessels. Look at the size of that flagship, Jiho breathed. It must be 300 meters long. Teho studied the sensor readings with growing amazement. Those are human energy signatures. Somehow these are our ships. Before anyone could respond, every screen in the command center filled with the image of a human face. The man was middle-aged with graying hair and the kind of eyes that had seen too much combat. His uniform was black with silver trim, bearing insignia that none of them recognized. This is Admiral Han Sung-woo of the Human Deep Frontier Fleet, the man announced. To the Keth battle group currently threatening human civilians, you have 10 seconds to power down your weapons and prepare for inspection. The transmission ended. 10 seconds of silence stretched into eternity. Then the human ships opened fire. The weapons were unlike anything in known technology. Beams of twisted light reached across space, striking Keth vessels with impossible accuracy. Where the energy hit, the alien ships didn't just explode. They seemed to fold in on themselves, disappearing into points of brilliant light. "Those aren't normal plasma cannons," Dongwu said in amazement. "I don't know what they are, but they're punching through Keth shields like they aren't even there." The Keth fleet, which had seemed invincible minutes before, was caught completely off guard. Their ships scrambled to respond, firing their own weapons at the human vessels. But the human ships moved in ways that defied physics, appearing and disappearing like ghosts. One squadron of human fighters, led by a ship that gleamed like polished metal, seemed to phase in and out of normal space. They would vanish from sensors, then reappear inside the Keth formation to deliver devastating close-range attacks. "How are they doing that?" He-Jin asked in wonder. "I don't know," Taeho admitted, "but they're human ships and they're here to help us." On the main screen, the battle unfolded like something from a dream. Keth vessels that had terrorized entire star systems were being destroyed with casual efficiency. The human ships fought with a coordination that seemed almost supernatural, each one knowing exactly where the others would be. A Keth battleship tried to escape, firing its engines at full power. A human destroyer simply appeared in front of it and fired a single shot. The battleship didn't explode. It just stopped existing, leaving only empty space where it had been. "What kind of weapons are those?" So-min whispered. "Something new," Jiho said grimly. "Something the galaxy has never seen before." The Keth commander's voice suddenly filled the communication channel, speaking in broken human language. "Human fleet, we did not know this system was under your protection. We withdraw our forces immediately." Admiral Han's face appeared on the screen again. His expression was cold as winter. "You threatened human civilians and their guests. Withdrawal is no longer an option." "We had no hostile intent toward humans," the Keth commander protested. "We only sought the return of escaped criminals. There are no criminals here. Only refugees under human protection. The Veltari are property of the Keith Empire by right of conquest." "The Keith Empire no longer exists in this system," Han replied calmly, as if to prove his point. 3 more Keth ships vanished under the strange new weapons. The surviving vessels began to panic, breaking formation as they tried to escape. But the human ships were everywhere, cutting off every route of retreat. In the colony command center, the humans and Veltari watched in stunned silence as their impossible rescue unfolded. The fleet that had been preparing to destroy them was being methodically eliminated by ships that seemed to come from the future itself. How did they get here so fast? Dongwu wondered. Even if they left Earth the moment they received our distress call, it should have taken weeks. "Look at the way they appeared," He-Jin said. "That wasn't a normal hyperspace jump. They tore holes in space itself." Elder Kithara stood transfixed, her large eyes reflecting the light from the battle above. "In all our long history, we have never seen anything like this. These humans fight as if the laws of physics are merely suggestions." The last few Keth ships were trying desperately to escape the system, but the human vessels pursued them with relentless efficiency. Some kind of new engine technology allowed them to appear anywhere they wanted, cutting off escape routes before the enemy could even think of them. A communication signal reached the colony from the human flagship. This time it wasn't the admiral but a younger woman with captain's insignia. "Colony Commander Park, this is Captain Kang Mina. We're preparing to deploy ground forces to secure your position. Are there any Keth troops already on the surface?" "Negative," Taeho replied, finding his voice at last. "They were waiting for the deadline before landing." "Good. We're also detecting Veltari life signs. Are they all accounted for?" "Yes, all 53 refugees are safe in the colony." "Excellent. Stand by for arrival of our security team. Admiral Han wants to debrief everyone on what happened here." The communication ended, leaving the colonists to stare at each other in amazement. Outside, the last Keth ship disappeared in a flash of twisted light, ending the battle as suddenly as it had begun. "It's over," So-min said softly. "They're all gone." Sang-ho, who had been arguing for surrender just hours before, looked pale and shaken. "Those ships, what kind of weapons were those? How did they destroy an entire fleet so easily? More importantly," Jiho added, "where did they come from? Those aren't regular Earth Navy vessels." Through the windows of the command center, they could see bright streaks of light as human ships descended through the atmosphere. The vessels that landed were smaller than the warships but still carried the same threatening design. Troops in advanced armor emerged, securing the landing area with practiced efficiency. "I don't understand any of this," Hyejin said. "An hour ago we were preparing to die. Now we're watching some kind of miracle." Kithara approached Taiho, her musical voice filled with wonder. "Your people have hidden depths we never suspected. The Keth believed humans were weak because you preferred peace to war. They were badly mistaken." "I don't think anyone knew humans could fight like that," Taiho admitted, "including other humans." "Then your species has been keeping secrets even from itself," the Veltari elder observed. "That is either very wise or very dangerous." A new voice came over the communication system, speaking with authority that brooked no argument. "Colony personnel, this is Commander Shinji Wu of the Human Deep Frontier Ground Forces. We're entering your facility now. Please gather in your main command center for debriefing." Footsteps echoed in the corridor as armored figures approached. The soldiers who entered looked human, but their equipment was far beyond anything the colonists had seen before. Their armor seemed alive, shifting and adapting as they moved. The commander removed his helmet, revealing a face that was stern but not unkind. He looked around the room, taking in the mix of frightened humans and grateful Veltari. "You've all been through a difficult experience," he said, "but you're safe now. The Keth fleet has been eliminated, and this system is now under the protection of Deep Frontier Command." "Deep Frontier Command?" Taiho asked. "I've never heard of that organization." Commander Shin smiled grimly. "Most people haven't. Until today, we preferred it that way." The night passed slowly on Kepler 442b. Most colonists could not sleep, knowing that death waited in the darkness above them. Taiho walked the corridors of the colony, checking on his people and trying to keep everyone calm. In the medical center, Somin was working late with several Veltari patients. The alien children were scared and crying softly. Their parents held them close, whispering songs in their musical language. "I need to show you something," Somin called Taiho over to her computer. "I've been studying Veltari biology for 2 years, but I just discovered something important." On the screen was a detailed scan of a Veltari brain. The neural pathways glowed in different colors, creating patterns that looked like beautiful art. "Look at this structure here." Somin pointed to a cluster of neurons. "Veltari brains are different from any other species we've studied. They have these extra neural networks that process biological information at an incredible speed." "What does that mean?" Taiho asked. "It means they're natural bioengineers. They can understand and modify living tissue in ways we can barely imagine. That's how they developed their advanced healing techniques and biological technology." Taiho stared at the brain scan. "You think that's why the Keth really want them? Not just as slaves. I think the Keth want to cut out their brains and use them to enhance their own biological weapons. The Veltari aren't just refugees to them. They're raw materials." The thought made Taiho sick. He had seen recordings of Keth biological weapons during his military training. Living creatures twisted into tools of war, designed to spread disease and death across entire planets. In the communication center, Dongwu was working frantically to boost their transmitter array. He had rerouted power from half the colony's systems, leaving many areas dark and cold. Sparks flew from overloaded circuits as he pushed the equipment beyond its limits. "The signal is getting stronger," he reported. "I'm broadcasting on all emergency frequencies. If there are any human ships within 50 light years, they should hear us." "Any responses yet?" Taiho asked. "Nothing. But even if someone hears us tonight, it would take days for help to arrive. The Keth deadline is in 6 hours." Outside, the first light of dawn was beginning to show. Above them, 50 Keth warships waited in perfect formation. Long-range sensors showed the enemy ships moving into attack positions around the planet. Hyejin ran into the command center with new sensor data. "The Keth are deploying something big. Massive energy signatures moving into orbit." The main screen showed huge cylindrical objects separating from the Keth fleet. Each one was the size of a building, bristling with weapon arrays and shield generators. "Orbital bombardment platforms," Jiho identified grimly. "They can destroy entire cities from space. Those things could turn this colony into glass in seconds." As if to prove his point, the Keth targeted a small moon on the edge of the system. Beams of pure energy lanced down from the platforms, striking the rocky surface. The moon simply disappeared in a flash of light, reduced to glowing particles that drifted away into space. "They're showing us what they can do." Tejo said quietly, making sure we understand the consequences of defying them. More colonists gathered in the command center as word spread about the demonstration. Some looked terrified, others angry. The argument from the night before started up again. We have to give them the Veltari, Sang-Ho insisted. You saw what just happened to that moon. They'll do the same thing to us. And then what? Somin demanded. We live knowing we handed over innocent people to be murdered. We live, Sang-Ho shot back. That's what matters. We live. Some things are more important than just staying alive, Hyejin said softly, like being able to look at yourself in the mirror. Elder Kethara entered the room with several other Veltari adults. The old alien looked tired, as if the weight of centuries was pressing down on her shoulders. We have made a decision, she announced. We will surrender ourselves to the Keth. Our people will not be the cause of human deaths. No, Tejo said immediately. We've been through this. We don't abandon our friends. Your friendship has given us 2 years of peace and hope, Kethara replied. That is more than we dared dream when we fled our dying world. But we cannot ask for more. We cannot ask you to die. You're not asking. We're choosing. The Veltari elder studied his face with her large, sad eyes. You truly mean this? Even facing certain death, you will not betray us. That's right. We have studied many species during our long history, Kethara said slowly. But humans continue to surprise us. Other races calculate costs and benefits. You follow principles even when they lead to destruction. Maybe that makes us stupid, Tejo admitted. Or maybe it makes you something new in the galaxy. An alarm started beeping. Dongwu checked his instruments and looked up with excitement. I'm getting something. A response to our distress call. Everyone gathered around the communication console as a weak signal came through. The voice was human, speaking with a military accent. Unknown colony, this is Captain Lee aboard the freighter Morningstar. We received your emergency broadcast. Are you under attack? Hope flared in Tejo's chest. This is Colony Commander Park Tejo on Kepler 442b. We're surrounded by a Keth battle fleet. They're demanding we surrender Veltari refugees or face orbital bombardment. Understood. We're 3 days away at maximum speed. Can you hold out that long? 3 days. Tejo looked at the countdown timer showing 4 hours until the Keith deadline. Negative. We have less than 4 hours. Static filled the channel for a long moment. Then the voice came back sadder. I'm sorry, Colony. We can't reach you in time. All I can do is relay your situation to Earth Command and hope they send a fleet to investigate. Thank you for trying, Tejo replied. The signal ended, leaving them alone again with their impossible situation. Some colonists were crying now. Others stared at the ceiling, thinking about the weapons pointed down at them from space. Sang-Ho stepped forward. This is our last chance to be reasonable. We call the Keth and tell them we're ready to hand over the Veltari. And if we do that, what happens to us afterward? Jiho asked. You think the Keth will just leave? They'll probably kill us anyway to make sure no witnesses survive. Maybe. But maybe they'll honor the agreement. The Keth don't honor anything, Kethara said bitterly. They destroy what they cannot use and enslave what they can. Your friend is naive if he thinks cooperation will save anyone. More arguments erupted. Some colonists supported Sang-Ho, others backed Tejo. The Veltari stood quietly, looking like they wanted to disappear into the walls. Through the noise, Dongwu's voice cut across the room. Contact. I'm reading something new on long-range sensors. Everyone turned to look at the displays. Far beyond the Keth fleet, space itself seemed to be rippling like water. Strange energy readings spiked across all frequencies. What is that? Hyejin asked. I don't know, Dongwu admitted. I've never seen anything like it. It's like space is tearing open. The ripples grew stronger. Reality itself seemed to bend and twist in impossible ways. Then, as suddenly as it began, everything went quiet. Whatever it was, it's gone now, Dongwu reported. But Tejo kept staring at the empty space where the disturbance had been. Something felt different, though he couldn't explain what. The air in the room seemed charged with electricity. Above them, the Keth fleet continued its slow approach. In 2 hours, landing craft would deploy. Ground troops would march through the colony, searching for Veltari to drag away to their ships. Unless something changed very soon, this would be their last morning alive. Park Tejo wiped the sweat from his forehead as he watched the morning sun rise over the mining colony on Kepler 442b. The orange light painted the metal buildings in warm colors, making the place look almost peaceful. He had built this colony with his own hands 5 years ago, turning empty rock into a home for 300 humans and their alien friends. The Veltari refugees lived in the eastern part of the colony. They were tall, thin beings with silver skin and large eyes that seemed to hold ancient wisdom. Their leader, Kethara, was older than any human Taiho had ever met. She moved slowly but spoke with a voice that made everyone listen. Kim So-min walked up to Taiho, carrying her medical bag. She had been treating sick Veltari children all morning. Her black hair was tied back in a simple ponytail, and her clothes were dirty from crawling under equipment to reach patients. "The Veltari are getting stronger," she said with a smile. "The children are playing again. It's good to see them happy." Taiho nodded. When the Veltari first arrived 2 years ago, they were broken people. The Keth Empire had destroyed their homeworld and killed millions of their kind. The survivors who escaped told horrible stories of slavery and death. Most other alien species refused to help them, too afraid of the Keth to get involved. But humans were different. When Earth Command asked for volunteers to take in refugees, Taiho's colony was the first to say yes. Other human settlements did the same. It was the right thing to do, even if it was dangerous. Lee Dongwu came running from the communication center, his face pale with fear. He was young, maybe 25, and usually calm under pressure, but today something had scared him badly. "Taiho, you need to see this," Dongwu said, breathing hard. Long-range sensors picked up something big, really big. They followed him to the communication center where screens showed data from the colony's sensor array. Choi Hee-jin was already there, staring at the displays with wide eyes. She ran the mining operations and knew how to read sensor data better than most. "What am I looking at?" Taiho asked. "Ships," Hee-jin said quietly. 50 of them, maybe more. "They just dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of our system." Nam Jiho, the colony's security chief, pointed at one of the screens. "Those are Keth warships. I recognize the design from military databases. Each one is over 100 meters long and armed with plasma cannons that could level a city." Taiho felt ice form in his stomach. The Keth had found them. After 2 years of peace, the monsters had finally come for their Veltari friends. "How long until they get here?" he asked. Dongwu checked his calculations. "At current speed, maybe 6 hours. But sir, they're not moving toward us yet. They're just sitting there." "They're surrounding us," Jiho said grimly. "Look at the formation. They have ships on all sides of the system. No one gets in or out." An alarm started beeping. The main communication system was receiving a message. Dongwu pressed some buttons and a voice filled the room. It was cold and mechanical, speaking through a translator device. "Human colony of Kepler 442b. This is Battle Commander Thekmore of the Keth Empire. You harbor criminals who escaped lawful punishment. Surrender all Veltari to us within 1 solar day, or your world will be cleansed of all life. This is your only warning." The message ended, leaving silence in the room. Taiho looked at his friends and saw his own fear reflected in their faces. 50 Keth warships against one small mining colony with basic defenses. It was not even a fair fight. "We need to call for help," So-min said. "Earth Command has to know what's happening." Dongwu shook his head. "Our regular communication array can't reach Earth from here. The signal would take months to get there and months more for any help to arrive." "What about the emergency beacon?" Hee-jin asked. "Same problem. Even if Earth sent ships immediately, it would take weeks for them to get here." "We don't have weeks. We have less than a day." Footsteps in the hallway announced more arrivals. Elder Kethara entered with several other Veltari. The old alien's large eyes were sad but not surprised. "We heard the message," she said in her musical voice. "The Keth have found us at last. We won't give you up," Taiho said firmly. "You're under human protection now." "And we are grateful," Kethara replied. "But we cannot ask you to die for us. Perhaps it would be better if we surrendered ourselves." "No." The word came out harder than Taiho meant it to. "We don't abandon our friends. That's not who we are." More colonists were gathering now. Word was spreading fast through the settlement. Some looked scared, others angry. A few, like merchant trader Yun Sang-ho, looked calculating. "Let's be realistic here," Sang-ho said loudly. "We're talking about 300 human lives against maybe 50 Veltari. The math is simple." "The math doesn't matter," So-min snapped. "These people trusted us to protect them. And look where that got us," Sang-ho shot back. "Dead in less than a day unless we make the smart choice." Arguments broke out around the room. Some agreed with Sang-ho, others with So-min and Taiho. The Veltari stood quietly in the middle of it all, looking like they wanted to disappear. Jiho raised his voice above the noise. Fighting won't solve anything. We need to decide what we're going to do, and we need to decide fast. Taeho looked around the room at faces he had known for years. These people had followed him to the edge of known space to build something new. They had worked together, suffered together, and built a home together. Now the Keth wanted to destroy all of that. Dongwu, can you boost the communication array? He asked. Maybe. If I reroute power from the mining equipment and overload the transmitters, I might be able to send a stronger signal, but it would probably burn out the whole system. Do it. Send a distress call to every human world you can reach. Tell them what's happening here. Even if someone hears us, they can't get here in time, Sang-ho protested. Taeho looked at him steadily. Then we'll buy them time. We'll hold out as long as we can. With what? We have mining equipment and a few security weapons. They have a fleet of warships. Then we'll make our stand with what we have. Taeho turned to address everyone in the room. I won't order anyone to stay. If you want to leave, the shuttle is available. But I'm not handing over our friends to those monsters. Kathara stepped forward. Your courage honors us, Park Taeho, but we will not let you die for our sake. You're not asking us to die, Taeho replied. We're choosing to live the right way, even if it's only for one more day. Outside, the orange sun was setting. Soon the Keth would come and everything would change forever.